my training from here.
Dr. Conrad Murray being charged with manslaughter.
He should have been charged with premeditated, but this was terribly wrong what happened to my brother.
What if I told you that the man who protected Michael Jackson's deepest secrets is finally ready to talk?
Yes, while I was standing at the foot of the bed, he reached over and grabbed a handful of vials.
After years of silence, the King of Pop's former bodyguard has stepped forward with revelations that will completely change how you see the legendary entertainer. I'm talking about intimate details that were never meant to reach the public, secrets so shocking that they've been buried for over a decade.
He was the one that was administering.
One, the secret life behind closed doors.
The 3 bodyguards he trusted with his life, speaking out for the first time.
Once we got to see what the situation and everything was, and how there was nobody else around, there was no entourage or anything else.
Let me paint you a picture that's going to blow your mind. Michael Jackson, the man who could fill stadiums with screaming fans, lived one of the most isolated lives you could imagine. And I'm not talking about the obvious stuff like hiding behind masks and sunglasses. I'm talking about a level of loneliness that his bodyguards, Mike Garcia, Bill Whitfield, and Javon B.J. Beard, witnessed firsthand. Here's something that'll shock you. When Jackson threw birthday parties for his children, do you know who was invited? Just him, the kids, their teacher, the nanny, and the bodyguards. That's it. No other children. No friends. Can you imagine celebrating your birthday with literally no friends your age? This wasn't by choice. This was Jackson's reality. But here's where it gets really interesting. These bodyguards weren't just muscle. They became his confidants, the keepers of his deepest secrets. They watched him cruise the Las Vegas Strip like any regular dad, hitting up drive-thrus for fast food. One minute, he's the king of pop. The next, he's just a father, trying to give his kids a normal moment. The stress and paranoia were real though. Those bandages and surgical masks everyone speculated about, his bodyguards revealed the truth. It wasn't to hide surgeries. Jackson was using what they called the burn victim look as the ultimate disguise. And you know what's crazy? It worked. But there's something even more disturbing than his isolation, and it involves the very person who was supposed to heal him. 2. The doctor's desperate cover-up.
I came into the room. He said, Alberto, hurry, we have to get him to a hospital.
June 25th, 2009. A date that changed music history forever. But what happened in those final moments? Alberto Alvarez, Jackson's bodyguard, witnessed something so shocking that it became the centerpiece of a murder trial. And I guarantee you don't know the full story. Picture this. Alvarez rushes into Jackson's bedroom after an urgent call from Dr. Conrad Murray. What he finds is Michael Jackson lying motionless, eyes and mouth open, connected to an IV line and urinary catheter. Murray is frantically performing chest compressions, claiming Jackson had a bad reaction. But here's where this story takes a sinister turn. Before, and I want you to hear this, before calling 911, doctor, Murray gave Alvarez a chilling instruction. Help me gather these medicine bottles and vials. Put them in this bag. We're talking about a man who's supposedly dying, and instead of immediately calling for help, Murray is orchestrating a cover-up. He handed Alvarez several vials from the nightstand, including an IV bag containing what prosecutors later identified as propofol, the drug that killed the King of Pop. Can you imagine being in Alvarez's position? Michael Jackson is dying in front of you, and instead of getting emergency help, you're being ordered to hide evidence. The 911 call only happened after they concealed the drugs. Meanwhile, Jackson's children, Paris and Prince, walk into this nightmare scene. Paris screamed and started crying, a sound that haunted everyone who was there. But if you think Murray's cover-up was bad, wait until you hear how desperately Jackson had been begging for the very drug that killed him. 3. The desperate plea for sleep.
He said, find me an anesthesiologist. I don't care how much money they want.
This is where the story gets heartbreaking. Imagine being so desperate for sleep that you're willing to beg for a drug that could kill you. That's exactly what happened with Michael Jackson in the months leading up to his death, and his nurse, Sherilyn Lee, witnessed it all. Picture this scene. Jackson, one of the most powerful entertainers in the world, reduced to pleading with his nurse for Diprivan. That's propofol, the same drug that ultimately ended his life. But here's what'll shock you. Jackson wasn't some drug addict looking for a high. He was a man tortured by chronic insomnia, unable to sleep for more than a few hours at a time. Lee described Jackson's mounting desperation as terrifying. He kept insisting the drug was safe, telling her, "My doctor told me this is a safe medicine. It works quickly, and it's safe as long as somebody's here to monitor me." But when Lee asked which doctor told him this, Jackson never gave her a name. Red flag, right? Despite Lee's repeated refusals and warnings that the drug could be fatal, Jackson wouldn't give up. He even asked her to find an anesthesiologist who could administer it overnight. But here's the most chilling part. 4 days before his death, Lee got a frantic call from Jackson's staff. Jackson was complaining that one side of his body was hot and the other cold. She urged him to go to the hospital immediately. He didn't listen, and yet, even this desperate cry for help wasn't the most disturbing thing his bodyguards witnessed in those final moments. 4. The botched resuscitation that sealed his fate. What I'm about to tell you about Michael Jackson's final hours will make you question everything about that tragic day. This isn't just about a celebrity overdose. This is about a series of medical failures that turned a treatable situation into a death sentence. Dr. Conrad Murray had administered a lethal cocktail to Jackson that morning. But here's where Murray's story starts falling apart. When he found Jackson unresponsive, this trained cardiologist did everything wrong. Murray attempted CPR on Jackson's bed instead of moving him to a hard surface. Any first aid student knows this is CPR 101. For 42 minutes, paramedics worked frantically, but it was already too late. Jackson had been in full cardiac arrest for over an hour before proper medical care began. Murray's delay in calling 911 while orchestrating his cover-up cost precious minutes that could have saved the king of pop's life. Jackson died at 2:26 p.m., a victim of criminal negligence. But if you think Jackson's troubles only came from his doctor, you're about to discover that his fame itself had become a constant source of physical danger. 5. When love becomes dangerous. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Michael Jackson's fans nearly killed him multiple times. I'm not talking about screaming crowds. I'm talking about physical attacks from people who claimed to love him. Picture this: Jackson's 1984 Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony. Thousands of hysterical fans surge forward like a human tsunami. People are fainting and getting trampled, and Jackson himself is almost crushed by the very people celebrating him. His bodyguards described it as controlled chaos, except it wasn't controlled at all. But it gets worse. During concerts, fans would literally storm the stage and knock Jackson to the ground. In Seoul in 1996, a fan climbed a construction crane to reach him during a performance. Jackson held onto the fan to prevent him from falling while continuing to sing. Can you imagine performing while saving someone's life? Even traveling became a nightmare. In Japan in 2007 and Germany in 1999, Jackson couldn't leave hotels without risking serious injury from mob attacks. Some fans were so obsessive that Jackson had to get restraining orders against people who'd trespass on his property. The man who brought joy to millions was living in constant fear of the very people who worshipped him. But this physical danger from fans was nothing compared to the betrayal he felt from the music industry itself. 6. The sister's accusation that shook the world. When Michael Jackson died, his sister Janet didn't mince words about who was responsible. In a raw, emotional interview that shocked the entertainment world, she pointed the finger directly at Dr. Conrad Murray and demanded justice. He was the one that was administering. "I think he is responsible," Janet declared without hesitation. She didn't just want Murray investigated, she wanted him banned from practicing medicine forever. This wasn't just grief talking. This was a sister's rage at the man who killed her brother. Janet described that horrific day, June 25, 2009, when she first learned Michael had been taken to the hospital. She was at her New York home when her assistant broke the news. "It just didn't ring true to me. It felt like a dream," she recalled, desperately calling family members for updates. The moment she learned Michael was gone, Janet's world shattered. But her grief quickly turned to anger when she realized Murray had been administering propofol, the drug that killed Michael, yet claimed he gave him nothing that should have caused death. Murray's conviction for involuntary manslaughter vindicated Janet's accusations, but it couldn't bring back the king of pop. However, Janet's public condemnation revealed something even more shocking about Michael's battles with the music industry. 7. The explosive industry showdown. In 2002, Michael Jackson did something that sent shockwaves through the music industry. He publicly declared war on Sony Music and its chairman Tommy Mottola. What he said was so explosive that it changed his relationship with the industry forever. Jackson didn't hold back. He called Mottola mean, a racist, and very devilish. He accused him of using racial slurs against black artists and claimed the entire industry was designed to exploit musicians, especially those of color. This wasn't just frustration. This was a full-scale attack. Speaking at Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network in Harlem, Jackson cited legends like James Brown and Sammy Davis Jr., claiming they were financially manipulated by record companies and forced to tour until they died. His message was clear. The industry was built on exploitation. Sony fired back immediately, calling Jackson's claims ludicrous, spiteful, and hurtful. Even Sharpton and other music executives defended Mottola, expressing shock at the severity of Jackson's accusations. But Jackson wasn't backing down. This confrontation wasn't just about money or creative control. It exposed deep-seated issues about racial equity in entertainment. Jackson was willing to destroy industry relationships to speak his truth. But if you think Jackson's public outbursts were shocking, wait until you hear about the backstage incident that became an industry legend. 8. The myth that fooled the world. Here's a story that's been circulating for years, and I guarantee most of you believe it happened. Michael Jackson supposedly fired his music director, Brad Buxer, live on stage after a technical mishap during "I Just Can't Stop Loving You." Fans swear they heard Jackson yell, "Job gone," as he publicly humiliated his longtime collaborator. But here's the truth that'll shock you. It never happened. This entire story is complete fiction that's fooled millions of people for decades. What occurred was a minor technical glitch during the performance. Jackson's gestures and vocal improvisations were completely normal parts of his stage routine. That phrase everyone thought was "job gone." Jackson was ad-libbing "doggone," something he did regularly during performances. Brad Buxer remained in Jackson's inner circle long after this supposed firing. The moment when Jackson put his head in his hands wasn't frustration. It was part of his choreographed performance. Technical issues happened occasionally, and Jackson, being the consummate professional he was, understood this reality. This urban legend perfectly demonstrates how easily Jackson's every move was misinterpreted by a world obsessed with drama. But there's one final secret his bodyguards witnessed that reveals the darkest truth about the king of pop's private struggles.